Rex was not just a dog, he was a soldier. A K-9 unit trained for high-risk military operations. He had served 4 years on the front lines with a precision and loyalty unmatched even by his human counterparts. His senses were razor-sharp, his training flawless, and his bond with his handler, Corporal James Avery, unbreakable. Rex had sniffed out explosives hidden beneath roads, tracked insurgents through scorched villages, and stood firm in gunfire without flinching. His name, whispered among his unit, carried weight and respect. But war has no mercy, even for its most loyal. During a high-stakes operation on foreign soil, a hidden IED detonated just meters from the team. Rex spotted it a split second before it blew and lunged forward, pushing James down and shielding him with his own body. The explosion tore into Rex's hind leg and left him unconscious. James survived with minor injuries. Rex didn't walk for weeks. He was airlifted home, patched up, and declared unfit for further duty. His once muscular frame lost mass. His leg, although saved, would never fully heal. He limped now, an awkward, painful gait that turned heads for all the wrong reasons. The military, grateful but practical, sent his paperwork through the chain of command. Retired. Medicaloi, even fed. There was no ceremony, no medal pinned to his collar, no handler came to salute him goodbye. James had been redeployed, and with military policy tightening, he hadn't been given the option to adopt Rex. Bureaucracy didn't bend for heroes, canine or otherwise. Instead, Rex was loaded into a van with other outdated gear and driven to a government auction site 3 states away. His file was a manila folder that read K-9 unit, retired, injured. No mention of the 3 lives he saved. No record of the commendation he earned, now buried in digital archives. At the auction lot, Rex sat alone in a metal kennel under a tarp, one number among hundreds. No fanfare, no familiar sense, just cold concrete and strange voices. People walked past his cage, glancing briefly before turning their attention to surplus electronics and equipment. The hero had become a number, a statistic, an inconvenience. Yet even in that cage, Rex remained still, composed, alert, his soldier's instinct refusing to fade. He didn't whimper. He didn't bark. He waited. Because that's what he was trained to do. And somewhere inside, wounded or not, Rex was still waiting for a mission. The sun beat down hard on the cracked pavement of the surplus lot. Rows of discarded equipment stretched across the fenced yard. Military trucks with missing doors, rusted crates of communication gear, dented helmets, and bulletproof vests too worn for use. But amidst all the steel and camouflage, the eyes of one living soul followed the motionless parade of strangers. Rex. His kennel sat in the far corner, just beyond the shade of an old generator trailer. A water bowl lay half full beside him. Dust clung to the fur on his legs. Occasionally, he would shift to ease the pressure on his injured side, but mostly he watched. The soldier in him was still present, still alert, still waiting for something. Anything, to feel familiar. The auctioneer stood on a flat truck in the center of the yard, calling out lot numbers with the speed of a man who had done this 1,000 times. Bidders, most in baseball caps and tactical boots, lifted their paddles for surplus gear and discounted tools. The occasional cheer would rise when someone snagged a bargain. But when Rex's lot was called, the energy shifted. Lot 142. K-9. Retired, German Shepherd, injured. Former military asset, the auctioneer announced, with only a slight pause before continuing. Starting bid, $50. There was silence, a few murmurs. Some leaned in for a better look. That the dog with the limp? Someone asked. Yeah, him, another replied. Look at that leg. Gonna cost more to feed than he's worth. He probably can't even run. What's the point? A middle-aged man in cargo pants raised his hand. 50, but only if you throw in a muzzle, he joked. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Rex didn't react. He sat, Proud but quiet, ears perked, eyes focused on no one in particular. The auctioneer glanced at Rex, then at the silent bidders. Any serious offers? A young couple whispered to each other, but when the woman saw Rex's leg, she shook her head. "He's beautiful," she said, "but we can't afford the vet bills." 50 going once. Someone scoffed. "Dog's just broken." The word hung in the air like a slap. Rex didn't flinch. He'd been through worse. Going twice. The auctioneer hesitated. For a moment, it seemed like Rex would be skipped, left unsold. The next lot, broken rifles, was already being prepped. But just as the gavel rose, an unexpected presence stirred at the edge of the crowd. Someone was watching. The auctioneer's voice dragged now, uncertain. His gavel hovered midair, but the crowd had already lost interest. The next crate of refurbished rifles had drawn more attention than the living, breathing war dog sitting quietly in a rusting kennel. "Guess even war heroes get clearance sales," someone muttered with a smirk. A tall man near the back chuckled and called out, "I'll take him if you throw in a warranty." More laughter followed. Not cruel exactly, but indifferent. The kind that cuts deeper than insults, because it comes from people who simply don't care. In his cage, Rex didn't move. He sat as he had been trained to, straight-backed, still and focused. His ears flicked slightly at the sound of raised voices, but otherwise, he was a statue of discipline and dignity. Even now, discarded, rejected, he held on to the last thing he had left. Pride. "He's not worth anything," said a younger man in military surplice, arms crossed. "Vet bills alone'll bleed you dry." "I heard some of these dogs get aggressive after trauma," another added. "Not worth the risk. Damaged goods." The auctioneer shifted his stance. He didn't want to admit it out loud, but the dog was stalling the flow. Most auctions took less than 30 seconds per item. This had dragged to nearly 2 minutes. He eyed the next lot, lot 143. Decommissioned long-range scopes. That would sell fast. Clean, predictable. He cleared his throat. Going 3. A gust of wind knocked over a clipboard on a nearby table. Papers fluttered. No one moved to catch them. Then the gavel started to drop. But before it hit, there was motion. Not from the crowd. Not from the auctioneer. From the very edge of the lot, standing just beyond the rope line, a man raised his hand. No paddle. No voice. Just a hand. He was older, maybe mid-50s, wearing a faded ball cap and a plain brown jacket. His face was shadowed by the bill of his cap. A thick scar traced the edge of his neck, barely visible. He didn't wave or shout. He simply held up his hand and nodded. The auctioneer paused. "Sir?" he asked, uncertain. The man didn't answer. He just nodded again, slow, deliberate. Someone near him whispered, "Who's that?" No clue. Never seen him before. The gavel, frozen midair, came down. Sold. The crowd shifted, but no one clapped. No jokes now. Just murmurs and glances toward the man in the cap who had said nothing, and still somehow spoken the loudest. As the final thud of the gavel echoed through the lot, a hush lingered in its wake. No one quite knew what had just happened. The man hadn't given his name, hadn't spoken a word, hadn't even stepped fully inside the auction line. Yet somehow, he had claimed the one thing no one else wanted. Rex. The auctioneer blinked, half expecting the bidder to turn away or disappear like a mirage. But the man stepped forward slowly, unhurried, as if time moved differently for him. His boots were worn at the soles, and his gait had a slight drag to it, just enough to suggest a past injury, long healed but never forgotten. He didn't speak to the auction staff. He didn't sign the clipboard right away. He just made his way to the cage. The crowd parted without being asked. Rex stood the moment the man approached. He didn't growl. He didn't flinch. Their eyes met through the wire. Two veterans from two wars no one else could see. Rex tilted his head slightly, as if measuring something buried beneath the stranger's silence. The man crouched beside the cage and, without asking, unlatched the door. There was no leash, no command, no hesitation. Rex stepped out. Limping, yes, but tall. He walked directly to the man and sat at his side, as if reporting for duty. The man reached into his pocket, pulled out a canteen, unscrewed the cap, and poured some water into a dented metal bowl he had carried in himself. Rex drank without looking away from him. A few people in the crowd began whispering again. Is he military? Who just brings a water bowl like that? Did they know each other before? But no one asked out loud, because somehow it didn't feel like anyone's place to. The auctioneer, still holding his clipboard, stepped forward with uncertainty. Sir, if you could just sign for lot 142. The man took the pen, signed a name that no one caught, and handed it back without fanfare. And then, together, they walked away. No parade, no applause, just a retired dog and a silent man disappearing down the gravel path at the edge of the yard. Someone muttered, "That dog just got lucky." But a grizzled old veteran near the trucks shook his head. "No," he said quietly, never looking away from the pair. They both did. The man's pickup truck was nothing special. An old blue Ford with chipped paint, mud-caked tires, and a tailgate that creaked when lowered. But Rex climbed in without hesitation. He didn't need coaxing. There was no leash, no shouting. The man opened the passenger side door and waited. Rex studied him for a beat, then stepped up and settled into the seat like he belonged there. Because somehow he did. They drove in silence down a long stretch of road, the hum of the tires blending with the wind. The man didn't speak, and Rex didn't need him to. The dog sat tall, eyes forward, head occasionally turning to glance at the man beside him. Every time he did, he received a slow, knowing nod. Not a command, not a gesture, just acknowledgement. At a dusty turnoff miles from town, the truck finally stopped. A modest farmhouse sat at the end of a gravel drive. Faded red shutters clung to the windows. An American flag fluttered from a pole near the porch. Rex leaped out without waiting for instruction and began sniffing the ground, limping slightly but alert, curious. The man walked up the porch steps, unlocked the screen door, and held it open. Rex looked up, then padded inside. Inside the home, the air was still and quiet. Photos lined the mantel, old war buddies, a younger version of the man in uniform, medals in dusty frames. In one picture, a German shepherd stood proudly at his side. Different dog, same eyes. The man walked to a closet, pulled out an old bedroll, carefully, like it meant something, and placed it near the fireplace. Rex sniffed it once, circled twice, then lay down with a heavy sigh. It fit him, worn and familiar, even if he'd never seen it before. That night, the man sat on the porch as the sun sank below the hills, a mug of coffee in hand. Rex lay beside him, head on his paws. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was full of unspoken history, of shared weight, of a strange, immediate trust. Two souls that didn't need to speak to understand. At one point, the man looked down and spoke his first words since the auction. "Guess we both got a little left in us." Rex's ears twitched. He looked up, then rested his head against the man's boot. That was enough. Days passed, then weeks. The world moved on, but inside that quiet farmhouse tucked between rustling fields and whispering trees, time took a slower pace. Rex adapted quickly to his new home. His limp remained, but it didn't slow his spirit. Each morning, he followed the man through the same quiet routine. Coffee at dawn, a slow walk down the long dirt road, then hours spent in the shop out back, where the man tinkered with old tools and long-forgotten machines. They never spoke much. They didn't need to. But every moment they shared layered something invisible between them. Trust, loyalty, and perhaps most of all, healing. One morning, The man retrieved a box from the attic. The cardboard was brittle, the tape yellowed. Inside were artifacts of a life that had been boxed up long ago. Dog tags, faded photographs, a folded flag, and at the bottom, a worn leather collar with a brass nameplate. Dukaki, K9 unit. He sat on the porch with the box beside him, gazing out across the field. Rex padded up and sat quietly next to him. The man didn't look at the dog, but he rested a hand on his head. "I had one before," he said softly. "Lost him overseas. They said I couldn't bring him home. Said protocol didn't allow it." Rex didn't move. He just pressed gently against the man's leg. "I swore I'd never get close to another," the man continued. "Wasn't gonna put myself through that again." He ran a hand over the old collar, his weathered fingers tracing the etched letters. "But when I saw you in that cage," his voice faltered for a moment, "I knew." The wind picked up, rustling the trees and carrying the scent of fresh earth. A tractor growled somewhere far off in the distance, reminding them that life beyond their shared silence still moved. Rex leaned his head against the man's chest, just for a moment, as if to tell him he understood. That he, too, had lost something: his handler, his mission, his place in the world. They were both discarded, both scarred. But here, in this space that smelled of old memories and second chances, neither of them was broken anymore. The man reached into the box, pulled out the collar, and looked at it for a long moment. Then he set it gently on the mantel beside the photograph of Duke, and beside it he placed a new one, a picture of Rex. This time, no one would be left behind. For the first time in a long time, Rex was home. His days now passed in peaceful rhythm. Soft walks, midday naps beneath the oak tree, slow evenings beside the fire. The limp in his leg remained, but the pain seemed to fade with each sunrise. He had stopped flinching at loud sounds. His eyes no longer scanned for threats in every corner. Here, in this place, he was safe. But peace never lasts forever. It came on a Tuesday. The man had gone into town for supplies, leaving Rex in the backyard to enjoy the sun. The breeze carried the scent of cut grass. Birds chirped from the treetops. And then tires screeched. A scream pierced the calm. Rex's head shot up. His ears went stiff. Instinct, buried but not forgotten, surged through him like fire through dry brush. He limped toward the front of the house, faster than he'd moved in weeks, his body remembering what his mind had tried to bury. A truck had swerved off the road, its front end buried in the ditch just down the gravel drive. Smoke rose from the hood. A woman stumbled out, cradling a young girl in her arms. Blood streaked down the side of the child's forehead. No signal. The woman cried, looking around frantically. "Please, somebody help." There was no one else. Rex took off. Despite the pain in his leg, he bounded down the hill, barking loud and clear. The woman spun in panic, then froze when she saw him. But Rex didn't slow. He stopped a few feet away, alert but calm. Not a threat, a presence. The woman, unsure, stepped back. Then she saw the tag on his collar. K9, retired. And her shoulders eased slightly. "Can you help?" she whispered, half laughing at herself for speaking to a dog. Rex turned and limped back toward the farmhouse. Then barked, short, sharp, urgent. "Follow me," his body seemed to say. The woman hesitated only a moment before cradling her daughter tighter and following the injured dog. By the time they reached the porch, the man's truck was rolling up the driveway. He jumped out the moment he saw them. Rex turned to face him, panting hard, but standing tall. The man looked at the girl, the mother, then at Rex. Understanding dawned in his eyes. "You brought them here?" he asked quietly. Rex sat, chest heaving. The soldier in him had never left. The farmhouse buzzed with quiet urgency. The man had grabbed his field medic kit, old but stocked, always kept ready in a back closet. Years ago, he'd packed it for himself, in case the nightmares ever came back stronger than his will. He never thought he'd use it for someone else. Yet here he was, kneeling beside a frightened mother and her bloodied daughter, his hand steady, his eyes sharp. Rex stood guard at the porch steps, as if daring the world to come any closer. The man worked quickly, cleaning the gash, checking the girl's pulse, wrapping her head gently in gauze. The bleeding slowed. Color returned to her cheeks. The girl reached out once, trembling, and touched Rex's paw. He stayed perfectly still. "You saved us," the woman whispered, eyes filled with tears. How did he even know? The man didn't answer right away. He looked at Rex, the dust on his coat, the fatigue in his legs, and the fire still burning in his eyes. He knew because that's what he was trained to do, the man said softly. And it's what he was born to do. "But he's injured," she said. "He shouldn't have been able to." The man gave a slight smile. "That doesn't mean he's done." By the time the ambulance arrived, the girl was stable. EMCs rushed in, surprised to find most of the critical work already done. One of them, a younger paramedic, crouched to pet Rex. "He yours?" she asked. The man nodded. "He's incredible," she said. "Most dogs would have run the other way." The man didn't respond. He just looked at Rex, his quiet partner, his second chance, and this time he patted the dog's head not like a soldier acknowledging a fellow fighter, but like a father proud of a son. That night, after the emergency faded into memory, the man and Rex sat on the porch again. The stars were out, clear and sharp across the sky. A breeze rustled the fields. The world, once again, was still. The man leaned back in his chair, coffee steaming in his hand. "You're more than just a dog," he said finally. "You're proof that no matter how broken they think we are, there's still fight left, still purpose." Rex looked up at him, tail wagging once. They sat there, side by side, scared but not defeated. Not discarded, not forgotten. Just two soldiers, retired, maybe, but never truly off duty. And for the first time in a long time, both of them were home.